I haven't heard anything from George. That's why I said we have a quorum.
Juan, how you doing? Hanging in there. Hanging in there. Has it been a rough Monday, Lewis?
Not rough,
Just Monday.
just Monday. It was nice this morning. Yeah, I was at the tower this morning. Towers. It was nice.
Down the new water towers.
Uh-huh.
How's the does the second one have a tank on it yet?
It's got half a tank on the bottom.
They're welding it together down there.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me in a couple of weeks they lift that one up.
Cool. Like it. All right, it's 4 o'clock, guys. I think we've got an infrastructure committee meeting. Monday, August 24th, 4 p.m. If we could get a roll call, please. Here. Great. We have a quorum. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes of the July 27th, 2020 infrastructure meeting.
Okay, second? Okay, got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, non-action items. Go ahead, Lewis. Project updates.
Mr. Chairman, committee, good afternoon. A couple of things I want to go over in the project updates discussion. Next slide. Talking about the towers. I left that slide on there. Contractors on schedule to have the logo painted on tower number 1 by the end of September. And we were talking earlier about the tanks on the tower 2. They would want to finish that tower and then that crew move over to the other one because it's just a assembly line project where all the crews come in and finish one task on one tower and move to the same task on the other tower. Since they are almost twins, one shorter than the other, but their finished elevation is the same height. It's just due to terrain, but that's where I was at this morning, trying to figure out where the logo is going to go for sure, so we can see it from Southeast Main and the airport on one, and then from South Main, and also from the airport on the other. So, trying to get it spread out, but excited that project's going good. Next project, this is the 5th and Garden behind the park, the alley. Just to give you an idea what it was a little easement, but you can see that people were putting stuff on the easements. So we had to go in there, move trees, move fences to get the sewer line fixed, and we're almost done. We even had to get, on the left picture, you can see, had to get a bucket truck, XL did, to hold the power line while we excavated right next to it. So another project, they're finishing up this week. We'll just wait for the gas company and we'll be done. So the other thing I would like you to do, let me find it on your handout. Just planting the seed, some of the decisions that I have to make. If you look on page 5 of your handout, North Main Pavement Maintenance Co-op,
Yep.
on the very top. Okay, that's the project. We're gonna slurry seal from, you can picture North Main from Country Club to College. You've all driven it. When it rains, it gets full of water, and the water is detrimental to the pavement. We went in there and slurry sealed just the outside driving lane closest to the curb. So we asked for some more money. Of course, the DOT didn't give it to us. So the decision will have to be, what part am I going to do if I don't get any more money? So I will be probably asking for more money once we sit down and do the budget with finance and stuff, when we go over all the projects and see what's going to happen with the general fund. Kind of falls in with the road prioritization, but this is the decision that, you know, I've been thinking about a lot. And also, if you can remember, we just finished the Nova chip on Southeast Main. We also did that on South Main. We also did that on Barindo Road. As I'm seeing that and the good quality and the results that we're getting from that, I'm thinking I'd rather Nova chip a little bit more money. I did have the contractor give me a price. It's their quoted $621,000. We have $215,000 between the DOT and ourselves. All that's on the handout. So I'm thinking $400,000 again. That's just my dream to do it all. If not, we just do a portion of. Because I'm used to that too. When there's no money, I just gotta flip a coin sometimes and see which half you're gonna do, which quarter you're gonna do. However you do it. But I just want to draw that to your attention. Main Street is important, and that does get a lot of wear and tear with the water. So with that, I'll move on to the next item unless you have any other questions on the updates.
Can you clarify the difference between the Nova chip and the micro surface?
Okay, the micro surface is what you have right now on that portion of North Main, and the Nova chip is what we just did on Southeast Main. What we did on South Main is you go to the airport.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the difference is the aggregate's bigger, the rock is bigger on the Nova chip.
Okay.
The emulsion that we use, the oil, in layman's terms, the emulsion has more stickum, more glue, so the adhesive is stronger. It's more durable. The rock's more durable. Monetarily, you're looking at $4 a square yard to $10 a square yard.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Chair?
What's your life expectancy versus?
The life expectancy, it's a little less at the microsurface, but what's kind of the wild card in this one is that section of North Main has so much water. And
So you think that the Nova will help?
I think the Nova would last better, and then, of course, I want to do full width.
Sure.
That's the full width from curb to curb, 621,000. Because I did just do that one lane on each side, and it kind of looks funky, but
Yes.
it's just
It's
trying
functional, but not pretty.
just trying to hold it together.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And I stand for any questions on the project report. Okay, the next one is consider resolution 21XX. Again, we don't get the resolution until it goes to committee. This is to support the Water Trust Board project application to construct new water lines in the Edgewood area. I assume everybody knows where the Edgewood School is. Okay. As you will recall, what's happening, I've been asked by management to put in for a Water Trust Board application. Sometimes it's a grant. Sometimes it's a loan. I'm asking for a 75-25 grant, so we'll see what happens. We're just putting in an application. But last year, we started, in the picture that you see, we put in that, at Garden and Cherry, put in that 36-inch line repair, and then we stubbed out with the 12-inch line. And that's what you see coming out, the green, or the blue, that's actually blue, 12-inch water line, and that's a valve attached to it. And we did extend it to the other side of Garden Street on Cherry. And what we want to do is we want to do Cherry Street from Garden to Atkinson, and just continue that 12-inch line, connect it to the line that we have on Atkinson. And then phases probably 3, 4, 5, and 6 would be the rest of the neighborhood that you see in color. But it's just, it's a smaller elephant than other elephants that we have, but a bite at a time, and that's what we're trying to do. So the application does require a resolution of support, so I can submit with the application, and that's what I bring upon you today, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and this was the email that originated with, the mayor was involved in a couple of,
Yes.
I remember that email chain.
Yes, that is correct.
So, yeah, that's, well, and this is, at this point, this is just an application to
This
try
right now is just an application.
to try to get some.
And
find some
I'm going
funds.
75-25, because typically if you put a little bit more, they're more receptive.
Sure. Sure, great. Any questions on this particular, on this? And so again, just to reiterate, this is, in order for him to move forward with this, he needs a support from the city council.
Yeah, and the draft resolution is on your page 9 of your of your packet. And then page 10 through 13, I believe, are the notice of intent that I had to submit to the Water Trust Board, saying that we were going to put in an application. And we have been accepted to put in an application, so this is just the next step in that.
Great. Great. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to send Resolution 21-XX to support the Water Trust Board project application to the September 10th, 2020 City Council on the consent agenda.
Second? We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. On to number 4. You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. This was initiated by Chairman Jacob Roebuck, wanted to have a roadway project prioritization process, and the bullet there, a methodology formula which we can prioritize road repair process where the council can make exceptions to this method, a determination of what level quality roads we are trying to strive to maintain, a plan or multiple plans of how the city can fund those levels. So what I want to do is just kind of do a recap. As you can see on the slide, that's one of the slides that we had from the pavement condition survey that was done. As you can see, Roswell's grade is a 52, and the suggested minimum target is a 60 for PCI, pavement condition index. Basically, your grade or your rating on your road structure. So that was our score when they went around and did all their testing and stuff. If you look at the little map, basically the red and the orange is the bad roads, the poor roads. And the green ones are the nicer roads. So you can tell Roswell has more reddish tint than blue tint or green tint. So just to recap, next slide. Also part of the report was they gave 3 recommendations and 3 funding levels. The first one was a planned budget of $5 million. And that was just a number that I used that typically that's what we get to spend is $5 million. Well, if we've been doing, so you can see at $5 million a year, we would have a PCI of 53, so really no gain, and our backlog would increase to 37. Okay? Scenario number 2, $9.5 million a year. a PCI is 60, a backlog of 29, which is still above the recommended maximum of 15 for your backlog. And that's for the next 5 years. So basically, you're on life support, that's what they call it. And then the recommended budget of $16.1 million will result in a network PCI of 74 and a backlog of 15 over the next 5 years. So you can see the differences in the funding required. I just do this highlight just because this is what we're talking about. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to give you a handout.
Thank you.
So as you can see, this is what we were planning back in March before COVID. And this is what I had submitted, and Juan's already seen this in more detail back in March. So we were talking a base program of $4.1 million, because that was about the target that I was given to use, which is still under the $5 million. But the heat in place, we were going to in place some streets and then microsurface those, $750,000. We were going to do a little bit of Nova Chip. And then the mill and fills. And what we were doing here, we were just going to do mill and fill with no sidewalk. We were just working on the bare bones pavement. Okay? We were going to do Sunset Walnut to McGaffey, Sunset Poe to Brasher, North Garden, Second to Cherry, Washington, McGaffey to Alameda. I mean, if you've driven all those streets, you know the conditions. Again, it was no sidewalk. It was just basically to adjust the pavement condition. These streets and the streets that we were going to do in the neighborhood, as part of that pavement condition study, they gave us a 5-year program. So we just went through and picked what we thought were the worst of the worst for year number 1, and trying to match $4 million. And then there was talk, again, we had high hopes back in March that, hey, maybe we can have a little extra money, get a little bit more aggressive. And we came up with a secondary, what we called optional. And again, you've all driven these streets. They're all on the list, and they need help. West McGaffey's not on there, because McGaffey, that's the one, hopefully, when you all do the ICIP, that you would give us a West McGaffey and the bridge on top 2, on the top 5 somewhere. Again, that's why they weren't put on this. We were going to had other ideas. But again, I'm just sharing this with you because we do have a process, and that's what we've been using. And I'm happy that you want to start a roadway project prioritization process. With any process, the number one thing is I can't plan unless I know how much money I'm going to have every year, which is one of the things that you want to talk about. This is an action item. I expect that the action would just basically come back and let's discuss it more. So, Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I appreciate that recap. I think we've all seen this material. So, the initiative here, we'll call it roadway project prioritization. The purpose is that we live in a community that they don't like us spending money unless we give them really good rationale, really good reason, and even above and beyond that, the better we can help them understand what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it, and really boil it down into layman's terms in a way that's understandable. I think the easier it is to generate what this calls, sort of the political will to put more money in. I think people see the streets, and I think that people, generally speaking, are in favor of of working on the streets. That being said, you know, our constituency does not have a lot of, they don't have a natural bent to trust government. So, and I don't think that's any knock on any particular individual. That's just our constituency, and they really want to get on top of things. You know, we did a bond issue for a new police station that I thought had fairly good rationale behind it, but frankly, we got our butts kicked. I mean, worse than any election any vote I've ever seen was 2080, which is a signal to those of us on the council say we need to do a much better job if we're going to go. You know, asking for money, whether it's pulling money out of the budget from something else to put it to roads, or whether it's actually going out and asking for a mill or something like that to put it to roads, we need to have our ducks in a row. We need to have gone above and beyond to explain it, how it works, etc. So, I think what I would like to see the staff bring back to this is a methodology or a formula. And I say this, I think that, Louis, by and large, as I've worked with you over the past 2.5 years, I think you do a pretty good job of picking out projects. I don't think that this in any way is to say, gosh, staff is not doing a good job prioritizing stuff. But for us to have the ability to go to the constituents they need to understand how this works and what is the thinking, as opposed to, I don't want somebody to say, well, why was this picked or why was this picked? I need to be able to explain it to my constituents in a way that this was the methodology that our staff uses, in a format that is codified, if you will. It doesn't need to be anything that goes through council, I don't think, but it needs to be something that is on paper and is a policy that has been blessed. That would be a useful tool for us, Louis, I think, to help us as we we work towards this, so that we can say, okay, and my vision is that I can say, okay, I can go out to the constituents and say, okay, if you guys are allocating this much money, then these are the roads that we're going to get to. And if you guys want to allocate this much money, we're going to be able to get to this road to this condition. And really give them in some ways, you kind of almost want to, from a marketing standpoint, you always want to, you want small, medium, and large. Because they'll never pick small, they'll always at least pick medium. Sometimes they'll go for large, but you don't go to McDonald's and order a small Coke. They don't, even with the meals, they automatically come with the medium. It's the psychology of it. But that's kind of what I'm hoping to in that tool. The other thing too is also, at some point, you won't be here, and I would like to make sure that we have a good methodology about the way the roads are getting funded. The better we can do that, have that methodology codified, and the less that it can, and again, I don't think this is arbitrary, so please don't take that way, but the less that somebody can accuse it of being arbitrary, but they can see kind of a little bit, a window into the mind of Louis, if you will, and how these decisions are being made and what methodology he's using. I think that the easier it's going to be for us to get, to be able to go to city council, of course, and then to take it up to the next level, but then also take it at some point potentially to the voters if we're trying to find more money out there, and say this is our methodology. You can trust this methodology, and here's what it is. Because when we went out for the bond for the public safety man, they wanted to know the questions were deep, intense, and they dug into us really, really hard. And frankly, they knocked us on our butts. And so if we do this again, and I think roads are an issue that I think that there would be public support for doing that potentially. If we do this again, I want to be sure that we are airtight. We've got all the answers. We are ready to go if we move forward with that. So that's that kind of question, that methodology and the formula. I think you need to give yourself in that formula as much latitude as you need as a city engineer to make common sense. We don't want a formula that's so rigid that you can't apply your common sense as an engineer in prioritizing it, but we need to have something that's going to give us a general projection based on data that we've gotten from the research you've done. That's kind of the direction I would really love to have that tool. So that's kind of the number one point. Anyone want to comment on that before I move on? Go ahead.
Well, it was a question really. If you don't mind sending me the street study, because that was probably prior to me coming on.
Okay.
if you don't mind. I would just
Yeah,
like
and
to-
let me, since you brought that up, Councilor Kennard, the study actually has all the streets listed per termini for 5 years. Year number 1, year number 2, year number 3. And I'm just bringing this up so we're in the discussion. So basically what we did on this list that I gave you, we took year number 1. Okay, we got year number 1, and then talking with Quinn Miller, the street superintendent, what are you seeing out there that's getting the most potholes and stuff? So it's the street superintendent and myself saying, okay, what are we seeing out there? We compare notes, we get on the whiteboard, we list our streets, start doing, then I do estimated costs, we put them back on the whiteboard and say, okay, you got $4 million, you got $5 million, and that's how we do it. But we always start with year number 1 of the scientific recommendation.
Right.
And then what else has happened? Did the water department have a main break that tore up some street? Did we have a weather event snow that came in? Because after a weather event, streets that were on the list, depending on how much traffic they carry, they get worse, and that'll change. And I think I'm just saying this because that's the things that you put in. That's kind of a prioritization plan.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're doing to kind of answer your question, and what Joe Nebb has done, we have the master project list. So anything's got to be on the master project list for the major projects. So you're kind of marrying that in there as well. So which projects comes off, which what do you switch out for? Which is the political process.
Yes.
Mr. Manager Nebb's master project list to me is kind of like your political process. And then the other thing is with the microsurfacing. Remember how we used to go around every neighborhood yearly? It took us, if we had the money, it takes about 8 years to say we slurry seal your street, and then 8 years again, you'll have it slurry sealed again. That's like the maintenance cycle. And that street department, again, they're doing that, trying to go a little bit over here, a little bit over there, based on what they're seeing. And again, too, a lot of our stuff that we would do on the roads, if water maintenance has done some repairs, we try to go over there, because typically with the water mains repair, we do the minimum patching, and that doesn't always look too good. And sometimes if there's a lot of breaks or they've done a lot of repairs, then we have to go there and slurry seal, especially if we had a large diameter break. The water creates potholes. It just waters and makes more potholes. So as I'm again thinking out loud, those are the kind of things that I've used as my tools. And then the other thing that I've seen in my experience, the political thing. So would you want to have one project per ward? Is that what you're looking for? Because I've done that too. That you got your major list, and I've worked with different types of governments and districts and all sorts of stuff. So again, there's the political process there. So again, we're just talking out loud. I'll try to put something together using these tasks that you brought up, and using my experience and political experience that I've seen, and we'll just kind of it's kind of like a meatloaf. We can change the recipe here and there to make it.
And I imagine that a lot of it will just be documenting stuff that you're already doing. I don't necessarily think that it's necessarily going to be a radical change in what's happening, but if we get it well documented, and so that we can easily communicate and understand that process among the other councilors as well as with the constituency, that's the important part. So, but yeah, I think that's good. And then when we get it here, the other thing I think is just processing it for what I call human consumption. Outside of people who aren't necessarily, obviously I'm not a roads expert, but there's people who haven't even thought about it at all. They just see the issues. So I think that's something I do feel like that and this is part of the bigger budgeting conversation that process as we're working on improving it. As a city council, I believe that we need to be looking at our budget and saying, okay, this much of our budget, if we're going to get this much revenue in, we should be spending 20% on roads, 10%, whatever the number is, kind of thing, and then try to keep that consistent versus kind of bouncing all over the place. And as we look at and obviously so that way when we get more income in, that means we know we're going to have more spend on X, Y, or Z. And I think it's it's an easier model for people to understand, to where if we say we spend, let's just say we spend, I don't know, I'm going to pull a number out that may or may not be accurate. We spend about 35% of our GRT on police. And that's a number, people can see that big picture and see that. I want to be able to say this is the percentage of the pie that we have on roads as well. And so, but with that, I want to be able to say within that percentage of the pie we have on roads, what is if you had the money, and I guess maybe, because I understand what you say, you go into the room and you talk about it, but if you all of a sudden had the money, what would be the next roads? Even beyond, and what would be the next roads for, I don't know how far out you're comfortable going. And again, I don't think this has to be something that we're 100% committed to, because obviously every year we approve a budget and everything changes anyway, but I don't know how far out you'd be comfortable saying, well, if we had this budget in 3 years, these would be the roads that, barring any changes, these would be the roads that we would get to. And then I think the other thing too is including in that kind of document or explanation, if you want, or documentation, whatever you want to call it, saying also this is our typical maintenance, and this is what you should be expecting to be seeing. This is what we're already doing already. This is what streets is already doing. Because I think people don't realize all that work, the work that gets done. They just take it for granted until it's a problem. And so when we're trying to sell more, we need to be letting them know this is everything that we are doing. And I just think that helps so much. We can put from a marketing standpoint, we want to control the narrative. We want to control the narrative and help people understand what's happening in the work being done. So I do feel like that list needs to be something separate from for under my number 2. That list needs to be something separate on from the master list, because I think we need to be doing apples to apples on the roads. I mean, obviously from a budgeting standpoint we have that, but I just want to be able to focus on prioritizing just which roads there's a way to make changes in that bit. Any comments on that before we go on? Or from YouTube, Lewis? Go ahead.
I think that you're right in that when we were voting, or that campaign was out there for the public safety complex, everybody was saying, well, what about the roads? That was like the first thing. And if it was my choice, I wish we could redo all the roads, because I lately have been spending a lot of time walking the roads or the streets. So I think that anything we can do to accomplish that goal. Everybody uses the streets every day. I mean, that's one thing that everyone uses. And so I think that however we can push that with the limited budget that we have, I think that would be a good idea. And I mean, even if it was, like they rank states in the nation, this is the worst one in Roswell. And I don't know that you would necessarily have to break it down by ward. It's just, what is the worst? And then of course there's always, the weather that changes things, and maybe it will change the priority of certain streets, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good thought. People like lists. They like seeing where does this rank. I think that, and in some ways it generates that excitement and interest in our streets, and people are help them think about it and think about, well, gosh, we have this many bad streets. So, you have anything you want to add to that before I go on?
No, I mean, what you're saying is very similar to what we requested on here is a 5-year plan, and it was all the streets, and I've done in previous employers 5-year plans, because you got to look at your budgeting at a 5-year. Usually a 5-year window is about as far as you can go, realistically, and everything had to be on the list.
Great. So the next one is, and this is one I think we need to figure out what mechanism. So we need to, I would like for this committee to send up to the full council and with a recommendation of, and I don't know if I can, something that fits in this. This to me is a little bit too abstract but we need some level of recommendation of what are the equivalent of, abstract is the wrong word. Maybe it's a different version, so I'm not sure. Again,
It's a different version, I think, is what you're talking
yeah,
about.
I think it's a different version, but to say, okay, we need to give, I would like for city council to give staff sort of, what is our vision of what level of roads we're shooting for? Because I think that affects, when you're hitting budgeting and stuff like that, as you guys are working on that before we see it, you're, okay, we know that city council has asked us to kind of hit this level with the roads. Because right now, it's arbitrary based on whatever kind of budgeting we need to think. But I think to help us make better decisions as a city council, if we have that indicator to saying, okay, and I think we need this beyond just roads. I think roads is an awesome place to start. Is okay, are we happy with 60? Do we want 74? Do we want 55? Or what? And what are those? And but we have to put that in a way that where when we vote on it, it's something that is the same thing, but it's got to make. I think it's got to make it be a little bit. I don't know, different words for the same thing, maybe. But somehow, I think we need to describe what PCI 60 means and what PCI 74 means, as far as the literal quality of the roads, in a way that's tangible, so that if we do take that to full council and we do a vote on it, then we can, and again, this is all part of the process. We do that vote and the city council does that. That gets in the paper. The paper publishes, this is kind of what we're shooting for. This is the kind of quality of town that we want to be. This is what your councilors who represent you said that we're striving for. I think that builds excitement and momentum for, hey, let's be a little bit better. Let's do better with our roads. So, but we need to come up with that. That would be the one thing I think that, I don't think one needs to go to full council. I don't think two maybe, I don't know. But number 3 is definitely something that I want to take to full council so that we can say, hey, this is the goal that we've given our staff, our engineering department on the roads. And then when you come back and say, well, if you want to reach this goal, you're going to need to find this money for us. And then all of a sudden, it's not you asking for the money, it's us asking for the money. And then we got to look at ourselves and ask the hard questions. But I want to force that hard questions to be asked by the council versus you bring the report to us like you did, and it was a great job with that report, and we just kind of like, it's a report, and that's our job, and we need to do that. So that's, if you'll help us with that, to figure out what that mechanism is, something that we can digest. So, comments on that from counselors, or anything you want to add to that?
No, and you're looking for something in layman's terms as well.
Yeah. And then the fourth thing on here, I think, is something that is kind of less you and more us. Once we have that, then I think we have the discussion, do we want to try to carve out more of the budget, prioritize it that way? Do we want to go after a mill? What are our other options? Do we have, do we want to hire a full-time grant writer to find more money for it? We need to sit down and explore every option, because if we say, hey, this is the level we want this thing to operate at, this is the level that we want the streets to be at, let's be sure that we're funding it. Because what we don't want to do is say, this is the goal, but and then we don't fund it. It's just like with the zoo. We came up with a master plan for the zoo, but then we had to fight to even get that first project funded. It's like, what's the point of coming with a master plan if we don't fund it? In some ways, I don't want to call this a master plan because those are dirty words to me, but in some ways, that's kind of what I want to do. I want to give us a goal, something that a level that we can fund to, something we can be striving towards. From our job is determining the budget and finding money for these things. So I think that's kind of the
With number 4, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
There's words that people don't always like to hear: user fees, assessment districts. Do you want me to throw those out? And
I think with that, I think we should put all the options on the table. We need to understand and discuss all the options. And yes, we need to, in this committee, we need to discuss every option. And if it can get out of this committee, then I think that if we think it's politically a viable option, then they can get out of there. But we need to know what they all are. We can talk to our constituents about it and say, hey, is this worth it to you? And they'll give us feedback. It's like, are you guys, how much, you guys complain about the roads. This is a way we can get them paid for. Do you want to do it? So I would love to have those kind of options explained in this committee as well, to make sure that we're reviewing all the different possibilities. Obviously there's some that are maybe too extreme, aren't even worth bringing and mentioning, but if they're even remotely something that we should at least, one slide, one paragraph on different options for starters, at least for us to kind of consider them and think about them.
The way I'm thinking of coming back is putting a bunch of ideas. Again, back to my meatloaf. I'm going to bring all the ingredients, and we can start deciding what ingredients we want in ours,
Yeah.
and take it from there. But I just want to know, because I see this is going to take, like you say, 4, 5, 6 months to do it. So I'll come back with my ideas and maybe some versions or small samples, and then y'all tell me yay, nay, and then the following month we'll do that.
Great. Great.
Yeah, because it's going to be, we can't solve this all in one meeting.
No, and I don't think so. Like we said, we expected it to take 6 months, and that's fine. And I appreciate, your willingness to jump in here and do this, help us do our job really, of providing the leadership to the community, saying, hey, we've got an engineering team, we got a streets crew. They're doing the best they can with what we've given them. If you want more, we need to take to our constituents and say, if you want more, this is the ways we can do it. What do you want to do? So I appreciate that, and I do appreciate your work and all the leadership that you've provided over the years, keeping us functioning.
Yes, sir.
Some places a little better than that. Sometimes a little better than functioning. So
That's what I get paid for.
yeah. Any other comments on this? Anything else from staff? You guys? No. Okay, then we won't. There's no need for a vote on that. But if you'll bring us back your ideas for the next meeting for starters, and that'll be our starting point.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to number 5, which is the Roswell water valve system replacement project change order. Yuck.
Okay, what I'm going to do, yes. What I'm going to do, have the utility director, Lorenzo Sanchez, so I'm going to kind of get it going.
Great.
And we'll both be here to tag team, so to speak, because people don't realize that, as I was speaking about with the street superintendent, I tag team with him all the time. I tag team with Lorenzo for 20 years already. It's not just the city engineer, it's not just utility, it's not street, it's all of us working together as a team. And I think that's what's helped me be successful with the help of these guys, is that we are a team.
Great.
Okay, so quite simply, let me kind of lay the pictures out. Pictures are always nice. So the picture that you see, that was a simple 36 by 24 cross that we had at 3rd and Garden, okay? And see how simple, look how big it is. You don't get those pieces, and you've heard me say that, you don't get that at Home Depot. Those are big, it takes 2 pieces of equipment to pick it up. Okay, so that's a simple cross, what we kind of visualize that we were going to be switching out, okay? As you see there on the right, there's the sketch that the contractor came up with. It's actually got some curvature there at 3rd and Wyoming. And we have 4 repair areas. As my breakdown said, 3 of the 4 have significant changes. But just to give you, perspective, look at the drawing on the right with all the fittings and the curvature and everything else, and look at the actual picture on the left. To also give you perspective, we did the North Garden repair last year. We had 13 change orders. We had 14, but the 14th is just to reconcile all the quantities so we can close the books. But we had 13 change orders, totaling up to $500,000. We started at 1.1. I think we ended at 1.6. Just to also throw something else at you, you all remember, what was it, McGaffey and Union? Remember we had that large diameter repair? I don't know if you all remember, if it was before your time, Jacob and Margaret. So we had a repair over there, and what blew out was a 2-inch line, right? The 2-inch line blew out, okay? But it was tied to, what was that, 42 or 36? 36. So when we had to come in and do that emergency stop, we also blew out another line over there at Gale and South Main, closer to the fire station. Those 2 repairs were $1.1 million. And it started out with a 2-inch blowout, okay? So when we start doing this, and again in my letter, it's kind of like you've all done plumbing at the house. You think you're just going to switch out the sink, and when you get there, you're switching out more. Unfortunately, a lot of these projects, there are no as-built. There's the plan that they put it out to bid, but where did the contractor get the fittings? At 3rd and Wyoming, they covered it all in concrete. So now you got to jackhammer all that concrete carefully, not to bust everything out until you have the line stop in to put it in. So long story short, we got 4 locations. 3 of them require significant repairs. The contractor has been meticulous, excavating, seeing what we got. Plus, once we do that repair, now I have to pave it. So now I'm paving the entire intersection of 3rd and Wyoming to put it back for the citizens. So yes, you have a change order of $210,000. I'm happy with that, number one, because the plans that we did, we were able to provide better information, and we see that. And we're hoping, knock on wood, this will be the only change order except for to reconcile all the quantities at the end. But in this line of business, we're just in plumbing business. A big project just costs more, plain and simple. So we're asking, and you can ask Mr. Sanchez any maintenance operations questions. He is my internal customer. He selected the locations that were required to do this. If y'all can remember, since we did North Garden, some of the complaints was low pressure on the west side of town, the north side of town, when we had that shut down. What happens is that it's supposed to circulate. Well, we found out when that happened, we had problems on the west side. And here we are on the west side of town trying to solve that for future breaks, so when you do turn off the water, we can circulate the water better. Lorenzo, you have any comments? Over here.
We basically prioritized all the large valve replacements where we've had failures, like Mr. Nahar stated, where we don't have loops in the system. We worked on a loop system, so it's better. That's where you get your pressure and everything, all your flows for irrigation, all your parks, everything. Also, several of the locations we picked have broken valves where we have zero control of the water in that area. If we had failure of the large diameter lines, basically you kind of got to let the tanks all drain down before you're going to get to be able to repair that. So that we're trying to get ahead of the game so we don't end up in that situation. So we have to get it done. So this is it's a huge task to do these large diameter valves and get isolation, and it is expensive. But it is going to improve the infrastructure, and yeah, I mean, it's severely needed. It's been put off too long. We have to get it done, and now's the time to do it. If you guys have any questions about anything or any of the change orders, you have any questions about that, I'm here for questions.
Questions? It's cost of doing business. I've seen you guys have looked at all these. Juan, you've seen all this stuff? Yeah. And I'm say this, and I feel silly for saying it because you guys obviously, you know what you're doing. But as you know, I just, and I'm sure you're doing this at some level, but I just encourage you. Obviously, you guys are dealing with, hindsight's 20/20. How things could have been done better 50 years ago or 100 years ago, and I hope that we are setting up your successors for success. And making sure that we're documenting everything well and keeping that in a way that, 20 years from now, that when they're dealing with some issues with these lines, that they've got everything in place. And so, but outside of that, I think we'll have to send this up to council and figure out how to find the money for it.
Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct. What we do now is we have as-built plans, we have pictures, we have GPS where all the valves are at, GPS where there's joints, and we try to have all that, and then we put it on our cloud of the city. Mm-hmm. Again, for the next generation, so they're not guessing. The other thing that we do when we cover it up, we don't just throw concrete on top of it. We do a flow fill, and flow fill is a half a sack per cubic yard, which maybe doesn't sound like much, but if we need to stiff it a little bit, we'll put 2 sacks in a cubic yard, 2 sacks of cement in a cubic yard of concrete. But what that does, it's stiff, it protects it, it holds it in place from the water hammers. But 20 years from now, when they're replacing it, 50 years from now, that can actually excavate it and jackhammer it, and it's going to come apart and not be so difficult and cost as much as what we're dealing with right
Sure.
now.
Sure, great, great. Well, that's my only comment. I did look over all this stuff, and it's all very interesting, and it's a lot. I'm glad you guys do that. So, any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to consider ITB-20-008, the Roswell Water System Valve Replacement, to be sent to the September 10th City Council consent agenda.
Juan, are you okay with that on consent?
Yes.
Sure. You gotta get a second on that real quick? Second? Okay.
Mr. Chair, yes, I'm okay with that, and then after this action, then it won't be at the next, but the following September, October, the October probably budget adjustment, then we'll include that. It's just an internal process that we'll take care of, once council has blessed it and moved forward.
Okay, great. Any other comments? If not, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, what we got left? Department reports.
Mr. Chairman, the department reports are in the packet, and if you have any questions, try to answer them or pass them on to the department heads.
Yeah, I did. There was one question that was brought up last time by Councilor Peterson. That I don't know if we got maybe we did get an answer. I missed it. What's the status on porta potties returning to Cielo Grande and other park facilities?
I don't know that.
Okay. If we could, I know Councilor Peterson brought it up at our last meeting. If we could look into that, I've had several constituents contact me and ask when are those coming back, so.
Let me ask the question to Mr. Matthews. Are we doing that because of COVID?
So it's not a budget consideration, it's
Not a budget. And that's what I kind of thought, it's a COVID thing, so.
So, yeah, and if we need, if there's I guess what we need to ultimately is, can you guys put those back? Do we need a council decision to put those back? Yes, but perhaps in the current status, he might want a council decision to put that back. I don't know, but yeah, let's figure that out, because I know that our constituents would love to have those back out there. Right. Great, fantastic. I did want to comment on something we talked about earlier today, just because I forgot to, but in the whole budgeting process, in the whole roads prioritization process, I imagine that with the ICIP this year, we probably will put a strong emphasis on roads. The state's going to be more likely to invest in sort of those kind of infrastructure projects versus parks, and we've gotten in the past several cycles, we've gotten a lot of parks and that kind of money. So I imagine hopefully when we put the ICIP list together, it'll be road heavy.
And Mr. Chairman, so I can put the bug back in your ear, I'd like to see the West McGaffey project as your road project, and the next bridge job just south of the Garden project. They
Right.
were in the ICIP top 5 last year. Let's try it again and roll the dice again.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my priority.
Well, the communication I've had with the legislators seem to be, I don't want to speak for any of them, but seem to be favoring those
Back
kind
to
of projects.
basics.
Yeah.
Back to
Yeah.
basics. And to
So-
me, roads and bridges are back to basics.
Yeah. Any other questions on any of the reports? Any other, I don't think we had any public comments. You got something you want to do,
Yep.
Juan?
Mr. Chair, just real quick, just for your information, is part of what we've been working with the Water and Sanitation Department. I know one of our goals for this year is to do a rate study both for the
Right.
water, wastewater, and solid waste. Right now, we are working with a contractor firm that has been doing those kind of studies for all of these utilities. So Lorenzo and Abraham are kind of communicating with that company to kind of get a contract that will be piggybacking on a purchasing agreement that we've been using in the past. So just wanted to give you that information that we'll be moving forward with that once we kind of ironed out all the details with them.
Great,
Thank you.
great. Any other questions? And we didn't have, no public comment from anybody? No? Okay, seeing nothing else, I appreciate everybody's work today. It is now 4:53, 4 or 5 o'clock, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.